Um, Welcome to Redmond. My name is Phuong Lee. I am one of the WinSE test managers. I'm here today to give you an overview of the fast-track Redist process. In the past hours, you have heard from Jamie about GDRs. Redist is basically a hotfix that Microsoft has granted redistribution right to a third-party vendor. So typically, Redist are pretty hardware-centric. For instance, we may get a request to fix a pointing device for a specific laptop. We may have issues like, for instance, a system crash in USB hub that sys when connecting to device. Typically, Redist or requests come from major OEMs. According to our recent PSS data, a major source of Microsoft income come from the top OEMs. They help contribute to about 32% of the Microsoft revenue, and the top 5 OEMs alone help generate about 85% of that revenue. They are like Sony, IBM, Toshiba, HP, and Dell. In today's climate, sometimes as an organization, we have not always been very consistent in meeting the turnaround time goal for Redist requests. So we need to make improvement in this area. I mean, the bottom line is just the serviceability between Windows and Unix. This picture is right here just to give you a timeline of the Redist live process. When a customer call in and reported a problem, basically they work with PSS, a product support center, and they open a service request case. So PSS triage the problem and determine where the problem occurred, in what area, what component, subcomponent. And then once they have that information, they create a hotfix in the WinSE database. And then that hotfix gets assigned to a WinSE dev. He worked directly with the customer and then provided the customer with a private, and customer help tested the private, and then we approved the private, and then at that time, OEM may choose to wait for some time before they decide, okay, we need this request for this particular bug fix. And then the Redist request get a triage in our war team by our PM, and then we granted the Redist request to the customer, or we choose to push back. And so you can see from a customer perspective, when the problem report was first generated until the time they get the right to redistribute that particular bug fix, it may take a long time because of all these different things that need to go through. This is just to give you a background. We did this analysis on Win2K SP4 data just to see how we perform on this space. So this data is about 6 or 8 months old. At that time on Win2K, we noticed that we have about 20 Redist a month. And on average, for P1 Redist requests, we've complete those testing in 17 days. This is just that WinSE test portion. For P2, it's about 30 days, and for P3, about 32 days. This is not so bad, but if you look at the standard deviation, it's indicating that we have not always very consistent in turning around these Redist requests in a predictable manner. So currently our goal is that for P1 we need to complete the testing in 40 days, and for Pri 2 is 63 days, and Pri 3 70 days. So even with that goal, we meet 90% when our goal is set to 40 days for P1, and 63 days for P2, and 90% if the goal is set for 63 days, and so forth. So our stretch goal is that we want, if the goal is set at 30 days for P1, 40 days for P2, and 40 days for P3, I mean, our performance is dropping down to about 83% for P1, 69% for P2, and about 62% for P3. So definitely there's a lot of improvements that need to be made in this area. So the idea behind the fast-track Redist process is that for fixes that we deem less risky, we want to give OEM the redistribution right immediately after the in-depth testing is done. And we communicate to the OEM this fact and let them know that these fixes will need to go through the broad test pass in the next broad test pass cycle, and therefore we may discover additional problems, just to give them that as a warning. So this process goes like this. When the customer called in and reported a problem, we have a WinSE hotfix open, and they may choose to request us to open a Redist bug. And then the WAR team triaged the bug and granted that request. And if the request is approved, then he talked to the owning party, which means like the development owner and the test owner, and to give a quick assessment whether or not this bug fix can be released on a fast track. What we're saying to the dev and test owner for these Redist requests is that for P1 request, you need to give us a yes or no, just basically a nod in 24 hours. Yes, this fix is okay to be released on a fast track or not. For P2 and P3, we gave them additional time, like 48 days, just to give a fast track justification. If the bug fix is a candidate for fast track, then we're saying that you must test that bug fix immediately and complete all your testing for P1 within 2 weeks. And for P2 and P3 Redist requests, you have about 3 weeks to do that. And like I mentioned earlier, the Redist bug fix will go into the next broad test pass. Now, for fixes that cannot be released on this fast track, then they fall back into the 5-week GDR process that Jamie had mentioned earlier. So we come up with some guidelines to help the decision makers to release bug fixes on a fast track. So we say into the component owner, for fix that is local, relatively simple, the changes are localized within one function, it doesn't drastically change in the logic, it doesn't alter the code path, then it likely is a very good candidate for fast track. And these fixes doesn't need to go through a broad test pass to assure quality or bring the confidence level up. So this chart is basically say the same thing. For fixes, don't do fast track. If they need self-host, stress testing, OTG deployments to ensure the quality of the bug fix. So although we are trying to improve the turnaround time performance, we cannot sacrifice quality. So what we say into the component owner is that be cautious about releasing complex bug fixes on a fast track. So, and as a general guideline, we cannot define in a generic way what a complex bug fix is and come up with a template. That decision lies with the development owner and the test owner to make the final call. They are the expertise in that code. They understand the changes, so they will be the people that best to make the decision. We suggesting that for bug fixes that affect multiple areas, don't do that on a fast track. And for fixes that are in one of the escrow reset components, and they are not likely going to be a good candidate for fast track as well. And I will give you the list of all those escrow reset components later. And we're also saying that for fixes that the affected binaries are considered one of those risky binaries, don't do it. And also we have a list of risky binaries to give you some guidelines. Risky binaries is essentially changes on those that had a lot of code churn. We take a change in this area, it caused another regression, and we have a lot of issues in that bug fixes. So don't do that. Also, for bug fixes that carry a lot of encompassed bug fixes, obviously you can't really get testing that bug fix in isolation, and you require a prod test pass to assure the quality. Then don't do that on a fast track. And if the fix is basically a DCR, this is a design change, you can't release that on a fast track. And another point that we want to make is that if the packet get rebuilt for whatever reason, it get rebuilt multiple times, more likely there are issues with that bug fix or something with that package. Maybe they didn't build the inf correctly. Maybe the 5 version was wrong. Then don't release those bug fixes on a fast track. So here are the list of all the different escrow reset components. As you can see, if we ever take a bug fixes in any of these areas, we don't use those bug fixes on a fast track because they require integration testing. And here are the list of the Windows binary that we don't release the bug fixes on a fast track as well. For instance, we take a fix in the kernel. That fix, regardless how long it's going to take, it have to go through an in-depth testing, a broad pass testing before we can release that. When I first present this to management, some of the concerns we have about this process is that, first we must have dedicated resources to ensure success here. We're also concerned that the component may just push back to say no to that particular bug fix, although it meets the criteria, because they don't have the resources to do immediate depth testing and get it ready in the 2 weeks for P1 and in the 2 to 3 weeks for P2 and P3. So that is one of the concerns. And just one cautious note, that you have to be very conservative about what is a good fast track candidate. And as you know, this process, we put it in place about a couple months ago, and it's a living process, and we need to continue to define it over time to either relax our criteria or to tighten it based on issues we find or the success factors. So far, when we have this process about 5 months, and we have succeeded in releasing about 50% of the Redist bug fixes on a fast track, and that's really right on target, because we estimate that 50% of the Redist can never be on a fast track because of other requirements that we place on it. So in summary, like I mentioned earlier, this process is a living process. We can help with 50% of the total Redist, but the other 50% we need to continue to evaluate and see what kind of improvements we can do there. In the WinSE service in business, servicing our customers is the #1 priority. Basically, GDRs and Redist are our top priority, and we have to meet the customer, we have to satisfy the customer requirements, and we cannot have any regression in this area. I think it's a lot faster than I expected. Have any questions?
What's your customer response after you started your fast track?
We communicate this. Oh, okay. Let me repeat the question. The question was, what is the customer response after we start the fast track process? They are happier. We communicate this process to all of our OEM TAMs, which is the technical account managers, and we told them we have this process in place. We try to reduce, our goal is to reduce the turnaround time, and it's a little bit better. We have this process for about 4 months, so I don't really have concrete data. Lately, we have been slammed with the GDR space. So Redist, unfortunately, is sort of taking a back seat. And we are working really hard to reduce the backlog. And one thing I want to mention is that management look at this data and really challenge us, because we have to come in and we have to give a justification where a bug fix cannot be released on the fast track. The default is they should be released on the fast track unless you have good business justification why it shouldn't be. So I think that check and balance in place to make sure that we not like only do this for 25% of the bug fixes and not meeting our target of 50%. Any other questions?
What is the difference between hotfix and fast?
Okay, the question is, what is the difference between hotfix and the fast track? Hotfix is a general term for all bugs reported by the customer. GDR and Redist is just the nomenclature for bug fixes that, when we said a GDR is a hotfix, and a GDR is a problem that affects many customers, and that problem need to be released to everybody. I mean, if you, I don't know if Jamie talked about this. Customer, like, for example, Bank of America could call in and they report a problem. And we use the term QFE, and now it's just like a general term, hotfix. And we provide that fix directly to Bank of America. They satisfied with that fix, they're happy. That fix later on become part of the service pack, and then everyone will get it. Now, let's say we have reported a problem in the security space. That problem is serious enough that we need to release that fix immediately to all the customer. And so we release that on Windows Update, and we call GDR, which means General Distribution Request. Now, Dell could call and said, I have a problem with my latest, Dell platform, and we need you to fix this video problem. And we want you to allow us to install that fix, before we ship our new machines. So those we call Redist. Now, Redist and Fast Track is we just saying that instead of having this problem take 6 weeks, 5 weeks to test this problem, if this problem is just limited to Dell and it's just fixing their keyboard issues, then we should focus our effort on testing that fix immediately and get it to Dell so that they can install it, so that they can build their machine and ship it out to the customer. So it's just the process of releasing that bug fix sooner to Dell. Does that answer your question? Okay. Do I have any other questions? You will see a lot of Redist bug fix in the hardware area, like in base, in USB, in storage, on the sys drivers. We don't Redist a lot of kernel bug fixes or security bug fixes because, but in the hardware areas that are hardware intensive.
All the private scope for Redist.
The question is, does all the privates go for Redist? No. The private is, we work with the customer. They have to help us test the private because they may have the hardware configuration that we don't have. And then once they approve that private, then we give them an official bug fixes, and that official bug fixes is either through a hotfix or, if they want to take that fix and distribute it to their customer, then we build them a Redist package that they can just distribute it on their website, they can install it on their machines, etc. So yeah, we don't release private. Private is just, even if the customer, later on we ask the customer to install the official hotfix, not the private, because you can't service a private. Any other questions? Well, thank you.